Welcome to my 2000 Tundra restoration project, very much so in progress. This is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, not just this video, but this project. This started many years ago when I first tried to repaint this old truck to keep it going. The clear coat, like a lot of old Japanese vehicles, had started to go on the hood and on the roof, and it was starting to rust in a couple of spots, and I needed a way to make sure that it would stay in good enough shape for me to drive. At the time, I didn't have another vehicle to drive, so I needed to do it quick. I didn't have a space to keep it inside, so I had to do it outside. So I ended up getting a cheap $20 Harbor Freight spray gun, about $10 worth of almond Rust-Oleum paint, and in my backyard, under oak trees and pine trees and with all of the bugs, I painted this 2000 Tundra, and it turned out okay. I was relatively happy with it at the time. I did have some problems when I thinned the paint to use with that cheap gun, but it put a coat of paint on the truck and it kept it alive for 4 years. Was it full of paint runs? Yes. Was it ugly? Yes. Did it cling to dirt like nothing you've ever seen before? Yes. But it kept the truck from rusting. I've been sharing progress of this project with friends and family, and they've encouraged me to do more long form updates, and asked if I had a YouTube channel and stuff like that. So I know I'm starting in the middle of the project, but welcome. This is how it stands today. I'm going to walk you around and I'll share some pictures and videos of what I've done so far. Welcome to my very tiny, very cramped, single car garage paint booth that I've been working out of. This has been a lifesaver. It's small, it's hard to fit everything in. I can barely move around the truck whenever it's in here, but it makes a world of difference compared to the first time I did this job when I was outside. This is not climate controlled, but I do have a dehumidifier, so I've been able to keep the humidity down. I'll try and catch you up. I know there's a lot going on right here. There's not much of the original color left on the truck. The truck was maroon, so you can see the floor pan here is still maroon. That is the original color. The only bright and shiny thing on the whole truck is this red. So I actually had a 1979 Corvette that was mostly bright red and chrome, and that is always what I've envisioned for this truck, is a bright red paint job and lots of chrome. I really like that combination. So I found the closest thing to my old Corvette that I could in terms of color, and that is what I've gone with for this truck. So what have I done so far? Obviously take the whole thing apart. That was step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tons of disassembly. The first step was actually to take the tailgate off. I want to try out my ability to do a better paint job on something that was manageable, and I also wanted to test out the color and see what I thought about it. I was super happy with how this turned out. I actually did this over Memorial Day weekend. I had the day off, and that morning I got up, took the tailgate off the truck, and started sanding. But the bed was next. So took the bed off, got it stripped down of all the almond paint, and here it is today. It has been back here for about a month now that I've had it finished. So same thing with as I did with the tailgate, stripped it down, got all the almond paint off, masked off the inside because I am going to redo the bed liner. This was my first kind of experiment with a larger piece during this project, and it kicked my butt. It took me a few weeks to get it right. I redid it several times. There are several places where I actually had to do some fiberglass work. The original truck had some fender flares, so I decided to flush the fender flares for now, but I wanted to have a clean look still. So there were, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 holes around the fenders here, and I patched those up. It's not perfect. I don't know if you can see any of the waviness from that. I think there's one right right there. It's not perfect. I'm no fiberglass expert. This was really the first time that I tried to patch something with fiberglass. But I think it's good enough that it'll look all right from 20 feet. I'm happy with it. If I ever redo anything on this truck again, it will definitely be the bed. The bed liner, again, is this original maroon. This is 25 years old and it has worked very hard. I worked landscaping and construction throughout college, and it did a bunch of that for me. And it's held up great. So I'm gonna put the same thing back in, the Rhino liner, except I'm gonna go with the black. I think black will look really good against that red. So that's the bed. First the tailgate, and then after that came the cab. It was just the most annoying part to work on, again, because I'm in kind of a cramped space here. So first step was disassembly. So I started by getting the doors off. So my original plan was to take the doors off, take everything off on the outside of them, mask off the inside, and then just paint them like that. And before I knew it, I had 3 large Rubbermaid containers full of parts out of the doors, and they had been completely stripped down. In the end, I decided it was just going to be easier to do that than it would be to mask off the entire inside of the door. I hate masking. So if a little bit of extra disassembly could get me out of some masking, I was all for it. So before I knew it, the entire interior was removed. Every piece of trim, every seat belt, the carpet, everything was out of the truck. One thing that I did before I started sanding and painting the cab is I took all the wheels off. I didn't want to risk getting those contaminated, and I lowered the truck down. So I put it on jack stands, dropped it a good, 8 or 10 inches. And that made getting up on the roof a lot easier. Gave me a lot more room between here and the ceiling, and just made that process better. So I got the entire truck masked off. So that includes the window, all the vents, obviously where the doors go here. And this was by far the hardest thing that I've ever had to mask. I didn't do the best job of it, but it was good enough for sanding. So I got that masked off. Got the back window masked off. I didn't want a bunch of dust up in here. And then I also had plastic draped all around the truck so that I didn't get a bunch of dust all over my toolboxes and everything else in here. So I got all the masking done. Next step was to start prepping. Between doing the bed and doing the cab, I got a new tool. So this is a surface conditioning tool. It is very large, very heavy, very powerful. It's got this large spinning drum on the front, about, 4 inches wide. And it's got a lot of different attachments. So the first one I started with was this stripping drum. Claims to be 40 grit. It's just this abrasive material. This is amazing at stripping paint and not damaging the material underneath. For metal, taking paint and primer and everything off of it, that thing is amazing. Then I also have a 120 grit, just sandpaper drum here that is good for finishing and taking the bite that this has out of the material. Another attachment that I got is this nylon wheel. These come in all different grits. I think this one's a 120. But this is really good for getting down in those tight crevices. It can fit weird shapes. If it was spinning, it would push down over that, and it's really good for getting in tight spots. All right, so I showed you that surface conditioning tool. That is how I was able to get this entire cabin prepped in honestly probably less than a week of just working, after work, in the evenings, stuff like that. It went super fast because of that. I had a couple other drill attachments with tinier brushes that allowed me to get in these really, really tight spots, like up under this lip that this weather stripping sits in. But that tool over there did most of this work. So I got the cabin prepped, sanded down, ready to paint. So my next step was to remask the entire truck. So I tore all the masking out, which was a blessing anyway. It made cleaning all the dust out of the garage way easier before I painted. So I demasked the truck and blew it out from back to front multiple times and got everything super clean. And then I moved on to painting. Got everything sanded, blown out, ready to paint, cleaned off, wiped it all down, degreased it, and then I started painting the cabin. and that went pretty well. Not a lot of trouble there. So primer, for the most part on everything, I've got 2 coats of primer, 3 coats of color, 3 coats of clear. So that's exactly what I've got on this. This is no cutting, no buffing, nothing yet. This is just straight out of the can. And that's the other thing. I am doing this with spray cans. Instead of messing around with the spray guns this time, I decided just to use cans. I saw some good results. Some people that I follow, and I decided to give it a try, and it's worked great. I am still using Rust-Oleum paint. So I've got the regular Rust-Oleum, the Sunrise Red. But on top of that, I am using a 2-part clear coat. So I'm using this 2K Clear Glamour from Spray Max. So that's a 2-part clear. It'll hold up a lot better. This is straight out of the cans, no cutting, no buffing, and it looks pretty good. After I got that done, the next thing to start working on was the doors, because the main goal is to get this thing watertight again so I can park it back outside and get myself room in the garage to work on some other parts of the project. So next up is to get the doors ready to go on. And you can see one of them hanging here. So this is the driver's side door. I just worked on this past weekend. I thought I was going to have it done this past weekend. I don't know if you can see it on camera. There's a line right there. So yesterday when I was painting, the fans on these cans are adjustable. I thought I had the fan set to the vertical setting. I did not. It was set to the horizontal setting from whenever I was doing the pillars. I went to make my first pass on the door here on the second coat of color, and it was set to horizontal, and I come across and it just lays a thick line of paint right there. Started running. I knew I'd messed up that coat. So I quickly grabbed a foam roller and rolled it out so I didn't have thick buildup right there, and made it easier to sand. So now I'm just waiting on that to cure good enough to be able to sand it back down, and then do another 1, maybe 2 coats of color and then the clear. I've already finished the passenger side door and it turned out great. It is back here with the tailgate. So there it is, ready to be reassembled and put on. I also got the hinges painted separately. So there's the door hinges there. They're just kind of loose right now until I get the doors on and can adjust them. So those are ready. The doors are pretty much ready to go on as soon as they're painted. I also got this little piece of bumper trim painted here. And this is by far my best looking piece yet. Again, that is no cutting, no buffing. That is straight out of the spray can. And it looks pretty spectacular. Super happy with how that looks. That gets you pretty well caught up on what I've done so far. And in the next video, I think I'm gonna talk a little bit about the plans. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. Y'all let me know if this was too long or if you want more details. And I'll be sure to adjust for next time. Like I said, I'll kind of brief you on all the plans in the next video. And now that I've started doing this, hopefully I'll keep up with it. And I can give you some regular updates and shorter videos and give you more detail that way. So I think I'll leave you with that. Until I see you again, thanks for stopping by, and have a great rest of your day.